All right, what's happening? Welcome to the What's Happening podcast. And it's been a couple of days since the game. Well, it's actually been a long time since we've done a podcast. But it's been a couple of days since the first game of the year now. So we are going to discuss it since I've had a couple of days to mull over things and kind of see how I actually feel about this 2018 Tiger team and a few other things around the country. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First off, Tigers got a win. Great way to start the season, 33-17 against the Miami Hurricanes, who I believe were extremely overrated at number 8. But nonetheless, number 8, and the Tigers beat them 33-17. So, with a good showing, of course. I mean, it's not like we lucked out and beat them. Obviously, we played a decent game, especially for the first game of the year against a good team. I'm not going to say they were a top 10 team, but anyway, let's dive in. Let's look at some stats real quick. So we'll start with the passing stats because we all know that's the one thing that everybody wanted to see going into this game is how LSU was going to handle the passing game, considering the last decade of a non-existent passing game, and we had a promise of one the last couple of years. So let's take a look at it here. So to start off, the Tigers they only played one quarterback, Joe Burrow. He was 11 of 24, 148 yards. He averaged it was 5.8 yards per play or per kick completion. 56.9 QBR. I'm not gonna say that's great or what anybody even expected coming into this. That everything we heard coming into this game was our receivers are the strength of our offense. So, that makes you think that, man, we're gonna chunk it around. We're gonna put some points on the board. That didn't really happen. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was horrible. But I mean, there were a few factors on why the passing game wasn't as good as it was built up to be. I'm not going to put any of the blame of it on the quarterback, actually. So, but let's finish going down the stats, and then we'll get into that. Rushing stats, we had Nick Brissett, 22 carries for 125 yards. To average 5.7 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, his longest was 50. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 8 carries for 24 yards, 3-yard average. Joe Burrow carried the ball 4 times for 14 yards. Chris Curry carried the ball 3 times for -1. That's 41 carries for 156 yards, a 3.8 yard average per carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns, with the longest 50 from Brissett early in the game. Receiving, Justin Jefferson, 5 receptions, 81 yards, 16.2 yards a catch. The longest was 37. Jamar Chase, 1 for 22. D. Anderson, 2 for 20. Jonathan Giles, 1 for 9. Leonard Fournette, 1 for 5. And Terrace Marshall, 1 for 3. That's 11 catches for 140 yards. an average of 12.7 yards per catch, and obviously the longest was 37. We had no turnovers in the game. Defense, the defense was the defense. They looked solid. I'm not going to say they looked dominant for 3 quarters. And then injuries, they had a couple injuries. Greedy got kind of banged up early. Fulton was a little shaky. I think that's just because of the time he's been away. I think he'll get better. He did look good at times. So, basically, we had a total of 62 tackles. We had 4 sacks. There were 6 tackles for loss, 6 pass deflections, 5 quarterback hurries, and the defense scored a touchdown. We had Jacob Phillips and John Battle each had an interception apiece. So that was 2 for the game. One of those went for a touchdown. Kick returns. We had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 2 kick returns for 38 yards. Punt returns. Jonathan Giles, 1 for 22. Cole Tracy, our kicker, was 4 for 4 with 15 points. He was 3 for 3 of extra points, and he had a long field goal of 54. Our LSU punting, we had Zach Von Rosenberg, 3 for 140 yards. His longest was 51. Josh Groden, who is our pooch punter, had 2 for 63. And he had a long one of 47. The Miami stats, Malik Rozier was 15 of 35 for 259. He had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Miami rushing, DJ Dallas had 8 carries for 38 yards. Travis Homer, 7 for 30. Trayon Gray, 3 for 8. And Rozier ran the ball 16 times for 7 yards. The receivers, Miami receivers, Jeff Thomas had 5 for 132. Lawrence Cager, 2 for 42. Brian Hightower, 1 for 32. Daryl Langham, 2 for 14. DJ Dallas, 1 for 13. Mike Harley, 2 for 13. Amon Richards, 1 for 9. Travis Homer, 1 for 4. And then the Miami defense, they had a total of 74 total tackles. We only gave up 2 sacks. They did have 8 tackles for a loss, 5 pass deflections, 6 quarterback hurries. Their kick return had 2 for 50. The punt returns, they had 3 for none. That's a good stat for our special teams. Their kicker was 1 for 2. And their punting, they had 5 punts for 182 yards and an average of 36.4 yards per punt. That's because I think LSU put a lot of pressure on the punter for the most of the night. So that's the stats. Stats not horrible. LSU was they were pretty balanced as far as we had 24 pass attempts against 41 rush attempts. So it's not horrible. The only thing was the completion percentage was not what I thought it should have been. So, but anyway, we'll get into that. So let's just kind of give the Tigers the rundown of each position. Quarterback play. I thought Joe Burrows was good. Obviously, I'm not going to say amazing, but I think with time and the rest of this season, and then next year, he will be a stud. It's been a long time since LSU had a quarterback that can go up to the line and actually check into plays that will actually help the offense and not hurt the offense, or just go up there and just run the same old play and run it right into the teeth of the defense and, go 3 and out. Running backs. Nick Brossette looks good. Obviously, obviously he's no Leonard Fournette or Darius Geis, but at the same time, as much as I liked Fournette and I loved Darius Geis, I thought that we leaned on that running game way too much, and I think having, and not that Nick Brossette's a bad running back, because obviously he had 22 carries for 126 yards. That's nothing to, that's nothing to laugh at. But I think with our offense not having that just stud running back that we've always had, it's going to help. It's going to take a little pressure off of the offense. They can actually, be a little more balanced, and not have to just rely on a running game. The other running backs, I didn't see a whole lot out of them. Like I said, the only other back that really had any touches was Hilaire, and he only had 8. And, he didn't do a whole lot. He averaged 3 yards a carry, but, you didn't see anything special. Burrow did run the ball for 14 yards, which, that's another thing that I thought was kind of an added dimension to this offense, was a quarterback who was smart with the ball and really and truthfully, he didn't just take the sack when he got pressured. He was able to get rid of it. He was able to tuck it and run it, and be effective. And he didn't really take any big shots when he was running, which was smart. I think he got hit a couple times, but nothing major. I think he got hit more when he got sacked. So, brings us to the receivers. I was not impressed with what we were sold as the strength of our offense. I saw several drop passes that the ball hit guys right in the hands. And to me, that's the same old receiving core we've had in the past. Guys get open, quarterback actually gets them the ball, hits them right in the hands, they don't catch it. You're not going to beat, you might beat an overrated Miami team like that, but you're not going to beat Georgia, Auburn, and Bama like that. So, they got to clean that up. I don't care if they got to put super glue on their hands. Our receivers need to start catching the ball. The offensive line was not impressed at all. I know there was the suspension. The McGee got hurt early, but at the same time, before that, the offensive line still was not what I would say was good. The pass blocking was atrocious. It seemed like Burrow was under pressure all night, even though the stats don't necessarily reflect that. It just seems like it. A lot of the incomplete passes came on. He was just getting rid of the ball because he didn't want to take a sack. The run blocking was average. They did open up a good sized hole for Brissett on that long run, but at the same time, he had to break a lot of tackles to get the 125 yards that he got. So, more props to Brissett. Like I said, the offensive line, wasn't dominant. They weren't even. I'm going to say they were just below average, really. and that's something they really need to get cleaned up going into a game against Southeastern. I would like to see the offensive line be dominant against a smaller school, and even if we don't have to throw it 30 times against Southeastern, I'd like to see the running game be dominant like it should be. And then, so that way, you got to get your offensive line some confidence going into Auburn right after that. I mean, everybody's billing Auburn. Their front seven is supposed to be the best in the country. So, you need to have a little confidence on your offensive line going into that. If you come out of this game where you didn't look, all that good, and then you go in against a team like Southeastern and you don't look, and you struggle, it's not going to be good going in against a, top tier SEC team, or SEC defense, I should say. Then now, there were at times what I did like to see, or what I did like, is when we did get down to the goal line, we were able to punch it in. The offensive line did a good job of firing off the ball and creating some space for Brissett to get in on that one. So, that was nice to see. The short yardage stuff was good. They were able to nut up and actually come off the ball and move the defensive line back so that our running back would have some space. So, I mean, that's really what I saw in the offense. There's 33 points on the board. Actually, you take 7 off of that because the defense scored 7 points for you, and you're looking at you score points, but you really only scored 26 on offense, and I wouldn't consider that a dominant performance on offense. I think the offense needs to be putting up 35, 38 points, 34, 38, 40 something points, if we're supposed to have, this dominant receiving core. So anyway, like I said, the offense has a ways to go. We understand, Ensminger's got to put his system in place, whatever his system is. I thought I saw a decent game plan, but at times it really still just kind of looked like the same old LSU offense. They just threw it a few more times. So anyway, we'll get into the game plan later. Let's go into the defense. The defensive line looked good. At times they were dominant. They, I think Rozier was running for his life most of the night. So that I liked that, which of course we all expected that from our we all expected our defense to be good, because that's a college tradition. LSU's defense being one of the top defenses in the country. So you just expect that, even with young guys, you just expect the defense to be good. So the linebackers, Devin White had 8 tackles, no sacks. 4 of those were solo. The tackles were pretty spread out. Grant Delpit, our safety, had 6 tackles. You don't necessarily want your tackle. I mean, you don't necessarily want your safety making a lot of tackles because that means guys are in your defensive backfield a lot. He did make some big play saving tackles. I would say. Then you got Chason is out for the year. There's nothing you can really say about that. It happens. It sucks for the young man. I wish we could have him for the rest of the year, but it's going to have to be next man up, and you would think with our defense that we would have a very competent backup to come in and replace him. So hopefully our offense is not affected too much by that. I mean, it does suck when you have a dominant player like that's gonna that you're not gonna be able to rely on. But we're gonna have to see who's behind him, who can take his spot. The DBs, Greedy looked good before he got banged up. After that, he was limping most of the night. I'm not going to say after that he was terrible. We did give up a couple of big pass plays, but I think a couple of those were on Fulton, who was kind of shaky. But I'm gonna blame that on the fact that he's been out. He's been dealing with the whole suspension thing for the drug test thing. We're not gonna get into that. I think with time and some game time, and just give him some more snaps, and I think he'll come along. I think he'll be good to be on the other side of the field from Greedy, if we can keep Greedy healthy. Special teams, like I said, the punters did a good job of flipping the field, all night. The kicker. Oh, it's nice to have somebody who you can run out there and get you 3 points. That you have good confidence that when you put them out there, that they're going to make a field goal. Obviously, we know that there's nothing guaranteed. They're not always going to make them, but it's nice to have a young man that you can be confident in. You can run him out there, and he can get you one of them 45, 48-yard field goals, and get you 3 points on the board. Next, I got coaching. We'll start with Ensminger since offense was the big deal. I thought there was a decent game plan in place. They seemed pretty balanced. They tried to get a lot of play action going. I just think the play action stuff they had a hard time hitting it because the offensive line had a hard time blocking the pass rush from Miami. And then like I said, they did score. They scored 26 points on offense. So that's nice. That's nice. I would like to have seen them score some more. I felt that the second half they came out and they were ultra conservative. I felt like they went in half with a big lead. They came out and from snap one of the second half, they were trying to just run the clock and shorten the game. I think that they should have kept their foot on the gas and just take a young offense and get them some confidence. Just let them not necessarily run it up, but let them put some points on the board. I mean, you only scored 6 points the whole second half. It seemed like they weren't really interested in really doing that. It just seemed like they were interested in possessing the ball and running clock, which, I mean, that's the same old offense we've seen for the last decade. So, let's stop with the conservative stuff. I mean, that eventually will cost you a game. You start going out there and start trying to run clock, and you start doing your 3 and outs. Well, you're adding pressure onto your defense, running them back out there, and they eventually going to get tired, just like they did. And Miami scores 14 points in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, you start thinking, "Oh man, here we go." And luckily the defense came up with some big stops, and they were able to. We were able to keep Miami from getting any real momentum going and creating a comeback. But I mean, it got pretty scary there for a moment. I mean, you get down to 17, and then Miami has the ball, and they're driving, and they came really close to making it 33-24 with a lot of time left on the clock. So, I mean, I think that they need to rethink this ultra conservative stuff when they get a big lead. Just keep your foot on the gas like every other team in the country, and run it up. I mean, I don't think. I think there's a lot of Tiger fans that would love to have seen that Sunday, especially since we hadn't seen it a whole lot for a decade. So let's, I mean, that would be nice. Aranda, great game plan as always. I mean, the man is just a defensive genius. The defense was, like I said, dominant for the majority of the night. Late in the second half, I think with the offense going conservative and had several 3-and-outs, that the defense, along with starting to play some of the second string guys, the defense got a little tired, and they gave up some big plays and gave up 14 points. But like I said, I mean, the man's the highest paid coordinator in the country for a reason. Next is, Orgeron, who I'm not a big O fan. However, I did see at certain points during the game he got a little fiery and was getting in guys' faces, which you didn't see last year. I didn't see it all last year. He looked last year at times he looked like he was really uninterested in the games, just looked lost. So I did like to see that he was engaged, he was locked in, he was focused, and he had that Orgeron fire. So that was nice to see. So yeah, I mean, it was just. Overall, it was a good game. We came out with a W, and we're gonna move on to next week and see if we can clean it up, get some confidence in our guys against Southeastern, and hopefully there's no letdown, and hopefully that they'll keep them focused, and we'll be able to blow them out and see what our offense can do when they just turn them loose. So, but anyway, so that's the game. That's what I get out of the game. That's what I got out of the game. So, there were a couple other things, a couple other teams that, I mean, Alabama was just dominant. Auburn was in a dogfight there for a little while with Washington. It was a good game. They squeaked that one out. Poor Tennessee. Tennessee can't catch a break. They got blown out by West Virginia. Who else? There was. I'm missing some games. Oh, Georgia. Georgia had it easy against Austin Peay. That was never even close. And then South Carolina looked good. Then just around the country, Ohio State looked good against Oregon State. I mean, that game was that was horrible. Clemson looked good. Michigan State struggled. Penn State struggled. UCF blew out UConn. That was a good game. I mean, not say a good game, but that was they took care of business. So I mean, Notre Dame beat Michigan. Don't know. I wish they could have beat one another, but that's how it goes. There's got to be a winner in that one, and I guess I would rather have been Michigan other than Notre Dame, but and then I tell you what, the game last night, that Florida State Virginia Tech game, I watched every snap of that one, and Virginia Tech was dominant. I mean, they were all over Florida State. Florida State didn't stand a chance. And Florida State, and that game was in Tallahassee. And you would have thought the crowd was a Virginia Tech crowd. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, that defense for Virginia Tech was just wow. They even had a little beamer ball, which you hadn't seen in a couple of years. The special teams for Virginia Tech was just, I mean, all I can say about that game is just wow. Because you didn't expect that. You didn't expect Florida State to come out and be that flat, and Virginia Tech was just amazing. So, but yeah. So we'll see what happens this week against Southeastern. Hopefully it's a dominant performance all around, and there's I would hope that we could get a shutout, but I mean you never really know. I mean something always happens, but I wouldn't be completely upset if Southeastern scored a field goal or a touchdown, but I would like to see a dominant performance in all three facets of the game. So, but anyway, I think that's all I got for tonight, and hopefully I'll be able to come back after the Southeastern game with an even longer list of good things about the game. So y'all keep rooting for the Tigers, and let's see if we can get the ball rolling and see what kind of momentum we can get going down the stretch, and see if we can carry that into Auburn. So
it's amazing, I'm the reason everybody fired up this